down here in the valley. I'm lonesome and know how I feel. Yes, I sit here alone in my cabin. I can see your mansion on the hill. Do you recall how we parted? Story to me you revealed. You said you could live without love, dear.
Yes.
In your loveless mansion on the hill. Now a light shines bright in your window. The trees stand so silent and still. I know you're alone with your pride, dear, in your loveless mansion on the hill. I've waited all through the years, love. Give you a love true and real. 'Cause I know you're alone with your pride, dear, in your loveless mansion on the hill. Tonight, down here in the valley, I'm lonesome and know how I feel. As I sit here alone in my cabin, I can see your mansion on the hill. I still think it's one of the greatest songs, all American songs ever written. A group of jolly cowboys discussing plans at ease. Says one, I'll tell you something, boys, you will listen, please. I'm an old cowpuncher, you see me dressed in rags, and I used to be a good one, boys, and I went on great big jags. I've got a home, boys, a good one you all know, though I haven't seen it since very long ago. Going back to Dixie once more to see them all. Going to see my mother when the work's all done this fall. When I left my home, my mother for me cried. She begged me not to go, boys, for me she would have died. Mother's heart is aching, breaking for me, that's all. With God's help I'll see her when the work's all done this fall. This cowboy went out to stand his guard. Night was dark and cloudy, storming very hard. The cattle, they got frightened, and they rushed in wild stampede. The cowboy tried to head them while riding at full speed. Riding in the darkness, so loudly he did shout, trying hard to head them, to turn the herd about. His saddle horse did stumble, and upon him it did fall. He won't see his mother when the work's all done this fall. His body was so mangled, the boys all thought him dead. They picked him up so gently, and they laid him on a bed. He opened up his blue eyes, looking all around. He motioned to his comrade to come near him on the ground. He said, "Send my mother my wages, boys, the wages I have earned. I'm so afraid, boys, the last year I've turned. Headed for a new range, I hear the master call. I'll not see my mother when the work's all done this fall." Charlie was buried at sunrise, no tombstone for his head, nothing but a little board. And before he died, this is what he said: "Boys, send my mother my wages, the wages I have earned. I'm so afraid, boys, the last year I am turned. I'm headed for a new range, I hear the master call. I'll not see my mother when the work's all done this fall." Yeah, Charlie was buried at sunrise, no tombstone for his head, nothing but a little board. And this is what it said: "Charlie died at daybreak, and he died from a fall. He'll not see his mother when the work's all done this fall." Oh, bury me now on the lone prairie. These words came sad and mournfully from the pallid lips of a youth who lay on his dying bed at the break of day. It matters not, so I've been told, where the body lies when the heart grows cold. But grant, oh grant, one wish to me, oh bury me on the lone prairie. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie, where coyotes howl and the wind blows free, in a narrow grave 6 by 3. We buried him there on the lone prairie. Oh, bury me not. And his voice fell there, but he did not heed our dying prayer. In a narrow grave 6 by 3, We buried him there on the lone prairie. And coyotes now, as they roam the plains, stand by the cowboys where his bones was laid, fling a handful of roses over his grave with a prayer to God, his soul to save. Just a loudmouth Yankee, I went down to Mexico. Didn't have much time to spend, about a week or so. I lightly took advantage there of a girl who loved me so. Found myself a-thinking when my time had come to go. What am I doing hanging round? I should be on the train and gone. I should be riding on that train to San Antonio. What am I doing hanging around? She took me to the garden just for a little walk. Didn't know much Spanish and there was no time for talk. She told me that she loved me not with words but with a kiss. Found myself a-thinking of some old train I could not miss. What am I doing hanging around? I should be on the train and gone. I should be riding on that train to San Antonio. What am I doing hanging around? It's been a year or so and I won't go back again. And if I had the money, I'd ride the same old train. But I guess your chances come once, and I sure have missed mine. Find myself a-thinking when I hear some whistle cry. What am I doing hanging around? I should be on the train gone. I should be on the train to Mexico. What am I doing hanging as the rain ruins my alibi? I'm down to telling you my red-eyed mind. It's not that sun-bright path. Call me from my home. Just that fine backslider's wine. Mama sings The sun don't fight right. Right escapes even the purest mind. Took myself for a kind and loving soul, till I found my face down on the barroom floor, crying, Jesus, what have they done to me? Will not drink backsliders wine no more. Do not drink backsliders wine. Do not drink backsliders wine. That song was also recorded by Jerry Jeff Walker, who landed in Austin about 2 years after I got there. And when the word got out of how much fun we were having down there, Willie Nelson moved down there, and then Waylon Jennings came, Towns Van Zandt, Chris Christopherson came back to California for a while. It was really a remarkable group of songwriters. And I was privileged to be around some of the most interesting songwriters ever, because they were cowboys, they wore cowboy boots, and they were Texans. But they also had just a little bit wider view of life than you would think. And so I called them the Cosmic Cowboys. And they had really a kind of a view of the cosmos that you didn't get in Nashville. We were never accepted in Nashville anyway for that reason. Because, we didn't sing songs that were about drinking, divorce, and depression, which is required in country music. I don't like to sing songs that make people feel bad about themselves. Burial grounds and merry-go-rounds are all the same to me. Horses on posts and kids and ghosts, spirits we ought to set free. City slicker pickers got a lot of slicker licks than me. Riding the range and acting strange is where I wanna be. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. I just wanna ride and rope and a hoop. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Wanna be a supernatural country rockin' blues. Lone Star sippin' and skinny dippin' and steel guitars, stars. Just as good as Hollywood and those boogie-woogie disco bars. a vest and I'm gonna head back west. A little woman and myself. When we come to town, they're gonna gather round, marvel at our belt buckles. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. I just wanna ride in a rope and hood. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Wanna be a supernatural country rockin' blues. Big raccoons and harvest moons keep rolling through my mind. And a home on the range where the yellow plate is pretty dang hard to find. Don't you bury me on the lone prairie. I'd rather play in Eureka Springs live. I'm headed out west, I'm doing my best to keep my old Bronco in four-wheel drive. Hey, I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Hey, I just wanna ride a rope and hood. I just wanna be a cosmic cowboy. Wanna be a supernatural country rockin' blues. Up is not the way I'm gonna shoot. I believe in another way. This song was recorded by John Denver. I miss him. He was a real light in the middle of a bunch of really bad music back in the 60s. I was a member of a group of people who sort of felt like, in fact, we believed that if a song can't be sung around a campfire with one guitar and still sound good, it's probably not ever going to get any better if you add all kinds of other stuff to it. And that was one thing that we saw eye to eye on. And there was a group of people that were singer-songwriters in that time period that agreed with us. And for a while, that was actually defined as part of pop music. And that included Glenn Campbell, and that included Dan Fogelberg, and that included Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy, by the way, started off his career in Austin, Texas, before he moved to Florida. And so we were the singer-songwriters, and although I didn't write this song for John, he did a better job on it than I've ever done. There'll never be a voice like that again. He was, like I say, he was a real light at a time when rock and roll bands were playing shows for thousands of people and inviting the Hells Angels in. And they were making documentaries about that. At that very same time, he was making documentaries about bighorn sheep in Colorado and eagles and North American wildlife. And then he got into talking about the ocean. I think he was the first guy to come along musically, he really made people appreciate what a beautiful country this is in every way. But I didn't write this for him. I wrote it for St. Francis, who was the first man in the church to go down that road. You know, at a time when the church just had incredible power, he said, you know, this thing can't be based on money. So he gave all of his money away, threw away all of his father's rich clothes that he had given him, and he tied his sack around his rope around the sack. That was sackcloth. And he put on sandals and he walked off in the woods. And he proclaimed that you don't even have to have a Bible to believe in God if you just look at his creation. And that was at a time when you had to pay your way in to salvation. You had to pay your way into talking to a priest, you know, about what you've done. And then maybe they might read you the Bible, because 95% of the people in medieval times when he lived were illiterate, couldn't read. So how did they learn the Word? He said the Word is in every leaf, the Word is in every river, the Word is in the mountains. What does it say in Genesis? God created the earth, and it was the Word that did it, his command. Because he calls for his brother, because he called the earth his mother, they drove him out into the rain. And some people even said that the boy from the country was insane, because he spoke with fish in the creek. Tried to tell us that the animals can speak. And who knows, maybe they do. Hey, how do you know they don't? Just because they've never spoken to you. Boy from the country left his home when he was young. Boy from the country, he loves the sun. He tried to tell us that we should love the land. We just turned our heads and laughed. You see, we did not understand. You know, sometimes I think boy from the country must be the only one who sees. Because the boy from the country doesn't want to see the forest. He'd rather see the trees. Boy from the country left his home when he was young. Boy from the country, he loves the sun. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away. On God's celestial shore, I'll fly away, and I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Has anybody here seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? When John died, hallelujah, by and by, John just flew away. Ladies and gentlemen, the banjo. Anybody ever heard of banjo around here? Well, I've never lived in Arkansas, but I got one. So after several years in Austin, I decided to move to Colorado. I've kind of always agreed with Clint Eastwood. Austin was becoming trendy. It was getting a lot of publicity. And whenever that happens, I know it's time to go. Clint Eastwood once said, anytime I see a trend, I go as fast as I can in the other direction. So right at a time of peace, love, and flower power, remember Clint Eastwood's movies that were made in Italy? They were some of the greatest westerns ever made. Spaghetti westerns came out. And they weren't exactly about peace, love, and flower power. As far as I know, this is one of the first pop songs to have a banjo in it that did well on the pop charts. But again, the other singer-songwriters were beginning to introduce country music into what they were doing. In the same year that this was a number one song, also Glenn Campbell had Rhinestone Cowboy, and John Denver had Thank God I'm a Country Boy. So this crossover thing between country and pop music was beginning to happen. It didn't happen in Austin first, it happened in California. And I just happened to have this song for a long time and recorded it in Nashville, and then it came out when I was living in Austin. So everybody thought, hey, this is another song that Texas could be proud of, but it's about Carolina, so that doesn't work. She came to me, said she knew me, said she'd known me a long time. And she spoke of being in love with every mountain she had climbed. And she talked of trails she walked up far above the timberline. From that night on, I knew I'd write songs of Carolina in the pine. There's a new moon on the 14th, first quarter the 21st, and the full moon in the last week brings a fullness to this earth. There's no guesswork in the clockwork of the world's hard old mind. There are nights I only feel right, Carolina in the pine. The frost shows on the windows and the wood stone smokes and glows. As the fire grows, we will warm our souls, watching rainbows in the cold. And we'll talk of trails we walked up far above the timberline. There are nights I only feel right, Carolina in the pine. here's to all the Murphys that came to Texas in the 1830s to free the land from one of the worst dictators that ever lived. I'd say I'd compare a dictator that's given us a lot of trouble right now to him. But I feel like the Ukrainians are kind of in the same position as the Texans. And I believe there may be an Alamo, but there'll also be a Sanchez Hill. And ultimately they'll get victory. Because when you're determined to defend your land, and it was their land that Mexico had given them, but they were then trying to overtax them and take back from them. You're trying to defend your land and your way of life, and your survival depends on it. You're going to beat just about anybody, no matter how long it takes. You know, it was Sam Houston's dream originally to organize the Cherokees and all the other tribes that were in the Southwest to form an army of 10,000 warriors to go in and run Santa Ana out of Texas, because he was a chieftain in the Cherokee Nation. But the chief of the Cherokees didn't want to do it. He'd already been removed from the South. He said, you know, when the war's over, we'll all just fight against each other. So I'm not going to do it. So then Houston went in and organized what few colonists he could get that could fight. There weren't many. And that little army he defeated with overwhelming odds against them. One of the most powerful empires on earth at the time. Texas went through a lot of hard times, and I lived through one of them. My grandparents and parents lived through the Depression. In the 1950s, there was another drought. Lasted for 7 years. What I appreciate about my people still today is that they made it through it. They also made it through World War II before that. They made it through Korea. They made it through Vietnam. They made it through all the ups and downs economically. And then along came my generation. And many tried to undo what those people had done. I asked my dad one time, what's the difference between my generation and yours? Dad, why are we like we are? Why did you guys survive the way you did? He said, I think the chief difference, son, is you guys are nothing but a bunch of whiners. It's true. Through all my mom and dad went through in life, I never heard them whine. And we're so glad to be Americans and live in a free country. And they were willing to give their life for that. Even if the land didn't support them sometimes, it was still their land. 6 o'clock silence of a new day beginning is heard in a small Texas town, like a signal from nowhere The people who live there are up and moving around. They got bacon to fry and biscuits to bake, stove that the Salvation Army won't take. Roll up the windows and turn on the fan. It's hotter than hell when the sun hits the land. Walter and Fanny, they own the grocery. Sells most all that you need. They've been up and working since way before sunup. Got the whole village to feed. They bring out fresh eggs, throw bad ones away. Rotted because of the heat yesterday. Store's all dark, you can't see the flies. Settle on round steak and last Monday's pie. Sleepy Hills Drugstore, cafe is open. Coffee is bubbling hot. Folks that ain't working gonna sit there till the sun up, talk about what they ain't got. Someone just threw a clutch in their old pickup truck. Looks like they're riding on a streak of bad luck. Roll up the windows, turn on the fan. It's hotter than hell when the sun hits the land. Wonder why you don't see no young folks around Copperville anymore. Guess they run off to Austin and hang out with those hippies and get a good job. The last time I remember that train stopping at the depot was me and my Aunt Nita come riding back from Waco. I remember we were wearing my long pants, sharing conversations with a man sold ballpoint pens and paper. People by the windows playing cards and reading papers. Mom came to read us when the train pulled into Copperville. And the train stopped once in Stephenville where Mom got me some ice cream. Now the streets are light, big window lights, sound of the rain's always their remain, and the memories of the ones like me turn their back to the splinter tracks, used to playing and run away from the depot man. Well, the train just don't stop here anymore. I remember me and brother used to run down to the depot, listen to the whistle when the train pulled into Copperville. And the engine backed and shiny black as coal and spitting fire. Engineer would say, howdy, howdy fellas. And the people by the window playing cards and reading papers looked as far away to us as next summer's school vacation. And the kids at night break window lights and the sound of the train only remain in the memories of the ones like me turned their back to the splintered tracks. Used to play and then run away from the depot man. A train just don't stop here anymore. Oh, the train speeds on by and just don't stop here anymore. Mary Martin was a schoolgirl, 17 or so, when she married Billy Archer about 14 years ago. Not even out of high school, folks said it wouldn't last. When you grow up in the country, grow up mighty fast. They got married in a hurry in March before school was out. Folks said she was pregnant. Just wait and you'll find out. Came about one winter, one gray November morning, first of many more to come. A baby boy was born. Cattle is their king, and Archer is their name. They gave to the acres that they owned. The brazos don't run dry, and the newborn calves don't die. Another year for Mary will have flown. Another year for Mary will have flown. Billy kept what cattle that his daddy could afford, bouncing across the cactus in a 1954. Cows were sick and skinny, and the weeds was all that grew. Billy kept the place alive, the only thing he knew. And Mary fixed the supper, Mary scrubbed the floors, Mary busted horses and blew the baby's nose. Mary and a shotgun kept the rattlesnakes away. How she kept on smiling, no one could ever say. Cattle is their game, and Archer is their name. They gave to the acres that they owned. If the brazos don't run dry, and the newborn calves don't die. Another year for Mary will have flown. Another year for Mary will have flown. Now the drought of 57 was a curse upon the land. No one in Bosque County could give Bill a helping hand. The ground was cracked and broken, and the truck was out of gas. Cows don't feed on prickly pear instead of growing grass. Morgan's got the money, Snakebite took a child. took the hay that Bill had piled. The bankers got the farm, Screwworm got the cows. The years that come for Mary, she's waiting for them now. And cattle is their game, and Archer is their name. They gave to the acres that they own. The brasses don't run dry, and the newborn calves don't die. Another year for Mary will have flown. Another year for Mary will have flown. Mary Martin was a schoolgirl, 17 or so, when she married Billy Archer about 14 years ago. Not even out of high school, folks said it wouldn't last. When you grow up in the country, you grow up mighty fast. 6 o'clock silence of a new day beginning is heard in a small Texas town, like a signal from nowhere. The people who live there are up and moving around. They got bacon to fry and biscuits to bake. Stove to Salvation Army won't take. You roll up the windows, you turn on the fan, hotter than hell when the sun hits the land. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie. These words came sad and mournfully from the pallid lips of a youth who lay on his deathbed at the close of day. It matters not, so I've been told, where the body lies when the heart grows cold. But grant, oh grant one wish to me, oh bury me not on the lone prairie. Oh bury me not on the lone prairie, where coyotes howl and the wind blows free, in a narrow grave 6 by 3. Oh bury me not on the lone prairie. Oh bury me not. And his voice fell there, but we did not heed his dying prayer. In a narrow grave 6 by 3, we buried him there on the lone prairie. And the cowboys know as they mourn the plains. They've marked the spot where his bones was laid. Fling a handful of roses over his grave with a prayer to God, his soul to save. As I walked on the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy all dressed in white linen, wrapped up in white linen, and he was cold as the clay. I see by your outfit that you are a cowboy. These words he did say as I boldly stepped by. Come sit down beside me and hear my sad story. I'm shot in the chest and I'm going to die. Oh, beat the drums slowly and play the fife. Play the dead march as you carry me along. Take me to the green valley and lay the sun. Or I'm a young cowboy, I know I've done wrong. Oh, once in the saddle I used to go dashing. Oh, once in the saddle I used to be brave. And first to the trap house, and it was then to the courthouse. I got shot in the chest, and I'm dying today. Go gather around you a group of young cowboys. Tell them the story of this nice thing. Tell one and the other before they go further. Stop your wild roving before it's too late. And we beat the drums slowly, and we played the fife. We barely wept as we bore along. We all loved our comrade, so brave, young and handsome. We all loved our comrade, although he'd done wrong.
I'm on a rundown, I'm out running sundown. I'm thinking I'm on the right track. I'm writing a song as I'm riding along, keeping the sun at my back. Big horse trailer and truck, I can make my own luck as I ride through the sand and the sage. As it gives me a rush to be busting the brush, acting about half my age. Lone cowboy, I'm doing my best. Lone cowboy, I go everywhere west. cowboy with my old campfire song. Lone cowboy, giddy up, get along. I've owned some good ponies, blacks, bays, and blue ronies, grays, pal, and me.